on the closing night red carpet of the Newport Beach Film Festival with star of the film The Fixer, Dominic. Welcome.
How are you doing?
I'm
it's
doing
good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
So we're very excited about tonight's film. You play The Fixer.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that role.
The Fixer is basically someone who, in their native country, in this case, Afghanistan, is a guy who would ultimately, take care of your travel, take care of your the people that you would meet, would translate for you, get you into some places that you couldn't get into. This guy Osman finds himself in, and he mostly does that for journalists, Western journalists coming there, which ultimately allowed him to aspire to be a journalist himself. And now he's found asylum in the United States. He's in a Northern California town, and he wants to pursue being in journalism. So he ends up connecting with the news agency that ultimately was the old news agency of his buddy that he took care of when he was in Afghanistan. They tell him that there isn't, they're not able to give him a job, but they give him the police blotter as another option, and that ultimately takes him into this subculture of this bohemian town that kind of unravels these dark corners that he falls into, and ultimately it kind of leads him to defining parts of his life that he wasn't able to do back home that he's ultimately faced with here in the United States.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah. It sounds so deep and interesting.
It is. It's very detailed, and it was a fabulous journey, and having a director like Ian Olds and Paul Felton who co-wrote it with him. These guys ultimately did the majority of the work, and I was fortunate to get a good script and some great people alongside of me to work with.
Certainly, and speaking of that, I just spoke to the director, and he mentioned they went through something like 3,500 people to find you. Yeah. What was that like, being kind of sort of knowing that process and then being cast for this?
I don't think I knew it till after I was cast, which was probably
really better.
Yeah, it was probably better. But I knew that he was going through an extensive process, so I knew that he was very detailed. So I actually took the pressure off of trying to be anything outside of what I could afford to bring to the table at that time. And, I was actually doing another project when I got the call to put myself on tape and send this in. And, things ended up taking a little bit of time, but 3 days before principal photography, I get a call to come on. So In many ways, I felt like that kind of worked to my benefit, to not really have a process before going in, not allowing myself to think too much about it, but just jumping in and, just paralleling places that I was in my life at that time, what was about to happen, and where the character was. I found the common denominators and allowed that to pull me in.
Certainly. Now, one of your previous films, Taqwa Kors.
Yeah.
Really kind of struck me because of some friends I had growing up, actually. I wonder if that sort of idea of roots to you is important in your projects, and what that kind of means to you in selecting projects that you're a part of.
That's a great question. This was also a very, I feel very fortunate because I feel like some of the projects that have really had an impact on my life I felt like I've manifested a little bit. I try to make my work very personal. And the decisions that I make in picking roles, I try to make very personal. It doesn't always mean I'm working, and it sometimes means that you're the broke actor. But I prefer it that way because it allows me to put a lot of myself and a lot of my history and my experiences into what I do. And I feel like that is what acting is about ultimately. That is what this craft is about, is making it personal. Yeah. Because that's where the audience relates to you. They don't want your interpretation. They want something that's very personal. That's ultimately why we resort to reality TV, because we can't help but see a lot of things that are happening that are personal in somebody's life. So to be able to translate that in whether it was with the Taqwa Kors, and I come from an Iranian background, so I was born there, and although I left when I was 2, it's still my heritage, but I was always a Western kid, so it was just kind of, I always knew what it was like trying to fit in, and that was a part of my survival. It was like, whether it was with clothing or hair or whatever it may be, or my lingo. I grew up in Texas as well, so there was a point
extra tough.
But then prior to that, I was, I grew up in Britain, so I went from you know, trying to fit in there to trying to fit in here, and how do I change my drawl, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. So all that stuff was very personal to me, and I felt like also with this character, I was able to find some correlations with that, and making it personal, yeah.
Fantastic.
That was the key word.
Yeah, making it personal. That relatability is huge.
Absolutely.
And what does it feel like to be part of the closing night film for the Newport Beach Film Festival?
It's a great honor. I mean, Newport Beach Film Festival is a well-respected film festival, and I think it's nothing less than an honor to have our film close this and to share this with the people out here, the community out here. I couldn't be more ecstatic. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We're very excited for
Thank
tonight's
you so
film.
much.
Very
I
nice
appreciate
meeting
that.
you.
Very nice to meet you as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Dominic, and you're at the Fixer, and you're at the Newport Beach Film Festival.